Hello everyone, it's Lola here again, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make meat pies. I'm not going to be using the all-purpose flour for my meat pie today, but I'm going to be using the wheat flour. So let's get started. To start with, I'm going to be making my filling. I'll be getting a large pan on my stove top, then I'll be adding a little bit of oil. Once the oil is hot, I'm going to be adding my diced onions, and I'm going to stir fry this until it becomes limp and translucent. So after about 3 minutes of stir frying my onions, I'm going to be adding a little bit of minced habanero pepper to give it some aroma and a little bit of heat. Stir fry this for a couple of seconds and then add the ground beef or the minced meat, as some would like to call it. Make sure you break this meat apart very well because you don't want any clump to be formed inside the filling. Once the minced meat is well broken and browned, I'll be adding my spices. And don't worry, you don't have to do this in any particular order. I'll be adding my thyme first, followed by some black pepper, white pepper, curry powder, a little bit of nutmeg, 2 stock cubes, and salt to taste. Now mix this together very well so that everything can be well combined. At this point, I'm going to be stirring in my diced potatoes. Then I'm going to be adding some water that is going to be sufficient to cook my potatoes until they become very tender. So now just cover it up and leave it to cook for about 15 minutes or till it becomes very tender. I've cooked these potatoes for about 15 minutes now and it's very tender. It's now time to add the carrots, and I'll also stir that in and cook it for another 5 minutes or until the carrots become tender as well. So this is all done. My potatoes are super soft and the carrots are really soft as well. Then I'm going to be adding my thickener, and today I'm using cornstarch mixed with a little bit of water to thicken up this filling. Leave this to simmer again for about 2 to 3 minutes and take it off the heat so that it can cool down while we make our pastry dough. So as I said earlier, I'm going to be using whole wheat flour for this. So when you are measuring out this, make sure you have a leveled cup. You don't want it to be heaped. And to that, I'm going to be adding my baking powder, nutmeg, a little bit of salt, and a little bit of brown sugar, which is actually optional, but personally I like to add it because it enhances the taste of the pie. Now whisk this together thoroughly so that all these dry ingredients can be well combined. Once that is done, I'm going to be adding my very cold cubed butter. Now I'm going to use my hands to massage this butter inside my flour until everything becomes very crumbly. And for this, you can either use butter or margarine. I've tried both, it worked out perfectly well. And you can also use a combination of margarine and butter in any ratio you want. But bear it in mind that the more butter you use, the more flaky your resulting pie is going to be. Can you see this? It's really crumbly. So at this point, I'll be introducing my egg. I'll also massage this with my hands until the egg is totally absorbed by the flour mixture. Once the egg has been totally absorbed by the flour mixture, it's now time to start introducing the cold water. And by the way, the cold water is very important because it's going to help the resulting pie to come out flaky and not dense. So continue to add the cold water, about 1 to 2 tablespoons at a time, until the dough comes together. Once the dough comes together, just knead it for about a minute or so. You don't have to overwork this, otherwise the resulting crust will also come out tough. So my dough is ready, but before I move on to the next step, I like to show you something. I'm just going to cut a little piece from this dough. Can you see this? It's not stretchy at all, and that is what we want. If your dough is stretchy at this point, then you should know that the resulting pie is not going to come out flaky at all. So at this point, after forming it into a ball, I'll just cover it up with a plastic wrap, and I'm going to leave it in the fridge to rest for at least 20 minutes. Now, when you bring out your dough from the fridge and it's a little hard, it's okay to leave it on the tabletop for a little bit until it becomes workable. But it's highly advisable not to let this come to room temperature because that will also ruin the crust. So now, just knead this for a couple of seconds again just to relax the dough. Then transfer it to your floured work surface and start rolling it out with your rolling pin. I like to divide my dough into two so that I can work first with one half while I keep the other half in the fridge. Okay, so now I'm going to be rolling out this dough to my desired thickness. If you like it thin, go for it. And if you like it a little bit chunky, go for it. At this point, it all depends on your personal preference. I'll now be using my pie cutter to cut out the circles in my rolled out dough. However, you can use any circular objects around the house if you don't have this pie cutter. It's all well and good. So once you are done cutting out all your circular disc, just set it aside. Now bring together the leftover dough, mold it again into a ball, then roll it out again and cut out your circles. Keep on repeating this process until you exhaust all the pie dough. So I want you to note that this pastry dough usually shrinks when you leave them for some time. And when that happens, by the time you place them on your pie cutter, it doesn't fit any longer. So in order to fix that problem, simply use your rolling pin to just roll out the dough a little bit before placing it back on your pastry cutter, and in that way it's going to fit perfectly well. So that being said, let's start filling our meat pie. I'm going to be adding about 2 tablespoons of filling inside the pie. I will not be overfilling this because if I do, the pie filling is definitely going to spill and it can even burst open inside the oven. So I want you to take note of that. Now we are going to use our egg wash to brush the sides of the pie. That is going to serve as our sealer, and I will use that to brush all around the circles of the pie. Once that is done, all you have to do is just to close it up. And voila, that is it. So now I'm just going to repeat this process for all my other pie crust until I've exhausted everything. Once you are done with everything, just place the pies in your lined baking sheet and brush it generously with the egg wash. And this is going to allow your crust to become golden and shiny once it's done. I will also be using a fork to poke my pies so that my filling can have enough space to breathe while it's in the oven. However, for wheat flour, it's optional because I've made this without poking them with a fork before and it came out just as good. I'll be putting this in a 325 degrees preheated oven, and I'm going to be baking it for about 25 to 30 minutes until it becomes well cooked and golden brown on the top. So the pies are done and I'll just be taking them out of the oven, and I'm going to be placing them on my tabletop to cool down a little bit because they tend to come out fragile when they are fresh from the oven. So now the pies are all cooled down, and I'll just take one of them and open it up so you can see what it looks like on the inside. This looks really good. So the whole of my family are right here with me in the kitchen. They just can't wait to have a taste of this. In order not to keep them waiting for too long, I'm just going to call it a day with you guys. Until next time, I'll talk to you shortly. Enjoy.